You wake because the baby beside the fire has stopped crying. That is worse than the crying. The small body feels too hot, the breathing is shallow, and there is no doctor, thermometer, pharmacy, or word for infection. So what happens next? For most of human history, a sick baby was not taken somewhere else for treatment. The treatment had to come to the baby. It came through warm skin, breast milk, fire, watchful eyes, shared food, and every adult who could help keep that child alive. But babies leave almost no medical records in the Stone Age. Fever does not fossilize. Coughs vanish. Diarrhea leaves no mark on a cave floor after thousands of years. Even deadly infections can kill too quickly to damage bone. Archaeologists have to work from fragments. Teeth are one of those fragments. As a child grows, tooth enamel forms in layers. Severe illness or malnutrition can interrupt that growth and leave a groove called linear enamel hypoplasia. The name sounds technical, but the idea is simple. A hard period in childhood can leave a permanent line in a tooth. Anthropologist Debbie Guatelli-Steinberg studied these stress lines in Neanderthal teeth. Her work showed that Neanderthal children experienced episodes of physical stress, just as later human groups did. A tooth cannot tell you whether the cause was fever, hunger, injury, or several problems at once. It can tell you that the child struggled and then survived long enough for growth to continue. That last part matters. A stress line is not only evidence of suffering, it is evidence of survival. So imagine a cold evening tens of thousands of years ago. You sit near a low fire as smoke gathers beneath a rock shelter. The baby against your chest has refused food since morning. The skin is hot, the hands feel cold, and the breathing has changed. You do not know about viruses or bacteria, but you know the baby is different. You notice whether the child can suck. You notice the color of the lips. You listen to each breath. A parent who has watched the same baby every hour since birth does not need a number on a screen to recognize danger. What can you actually do? First, you keep the child close. Among recent hunter-gatherer communities, infants often spend enormous amounts of time in physical contact with caregivers. Barry Hewlett's research among Aka foragers in Central Africa documented unusually close father-infant contact, while relatives also shared care. The Aka are not living fossils, so their behavior cannot simply be copied backward. But this research shows how mobile caregiving can work when babies are carried, watched, fed, and comforted by many people. For a sick infant, close contact provides warmth, reduces energy spent crying, makes changes in breathing easier to notice, and keeps the child near milk. It also allows another adult to take over when the mother needs food, sleep, or water. This may have been one of the most powerful treatments available. Not a mysterious herb, another human body. Breast milk would have been especially important. It provides calories and fluid in a form an infant can usually digest more easily than solid food. It also carries immune factors that help protect against disease. Stone Age parents would not have understood antibodies, but they could observe that a baby who continued to nurse had a better chance than one who could not. Researchers can sometimes reconstruct ancient nursing from teeth. Christine Austin and her colleagues showed that barium levels inside growing teeth can record changes between breastfeeding and other foods. In one Neanderthal child, the chemical pattern suggested nursing followed by a sudden interruption. The reason is unknown. Perhaps the mother died. Perhaps the child became ill. Perhaps food conditions changed. One tooth cannot tell the whole story. But it proves that a feeding crisis could become written into the body. What happened if the baby could not nurse? That was one of the most dangerous moments imaginable. Another lactating woman may have fed the child. Soft food could be chewed by an adult before being placed in the baby's mouth. Water might be offered in tiny amounts using a hand, shell, skin container, or another simple vessel. Each option carried risk. Water could contain parasites. Pre-masticated food could spread infection. A substitute feeder might not be available. Yet doing nothing was also dangerous. This is where the group mattered. Human babies are unusually helpless for unusually long periods. They cannot follow a moving camp, and their growing brains demand huge amounts of energy. A single adult trying to provide food, warmth, protection, and constant care would face a brutal problem. Human survival solved part of that problem socially. Anthropologist Blaffer Hrdy uses the term cooperative breeding for systems in which individuals other than the mother help care for young. In plain English, the baby survives because caregiving is shared. When a baby became sick, that network may have tightened. One person held the child, another maintained the fire, another brought water or gathered food. A skilled elder remembered which plant soothed the stomach, which smoke drove away insects, and which remedy had harmed someone before. Did Stone Age people use medicine? Almost certainly in some form, but the details are difficult to prove. Plants with medicinal properties existed wherever humans lived, but proving that one was given to a sick baby is difficult. Pollen near a body is not a prescription. Some treatments may have helped. Some may have done nothing. Some may have made the baby worse. There was no controlled dose, sterile equipment, or emergency rescue if breathing stopped. The greatest danger was often not the predator outside the cave. It was dehydration, respiratory infection, contaminated food, parasites, cold, and the simple inability of a tiny body to keep going. Infant mortality was high in past populations, although exact Paleolithic rates cannot be measured confidently. Infant bones are small, fragile, and easily lost. Many deaths left no preserved burial. The record is biased toward what survives, not what happened most often. Still, some discoveries reveal more than loss. At Cima de los Huesos in Spain, Gracia and her colleagues studied the skull of a child who lived more than 9 years ago. The child had craniosynostosis, a condition in which parts of the skull fused too early and changed the shape of the growing head. The child survived for years. That does not prove exactly how much help was required, but it suggests ancient humans did not automatically abandon every vulnerable child. A more recent and debated case comes from Cova Negra in Spain. Marta Conde-Valverde and her team described the inner ear of a Neanderthal child who may have had Down syndrome and survived to about 6 years old. The diagnosis has been questioned, so it is not certain. Yet the find has reopened a serious question. How much care could Neanderthal groups provide to children with long-term needs? The answer may be more than older stereotypes allowed. A Stone Age family had no cure for pneumonia, no antibiotic for infection, and no intravenous fluid for dehydration. But helplessness is not the same as indifference. A sick baby could be carried for days. Others could find food while a father, grandmother, sibling, or camp member held the child through the night. The group could become the medicine, even when the medicine failed. And sometimes it did fail. The fire remained warm, the adults kept watching, and the breathing still stopped. Grief does not need written language. A parent, years ago, did not love less because death was common. Burials of children in prehistoric contexts show that some young lives were treated with care after death. At Sungir in Russia, children were buried with extraordinary numbers of ornaments. Sungir does not represent every group, but it shows that children could carry social meaning far beyond their size. Here is the counterintuitive part. Ancient babies faced far more disease and far fewer effective treatments, yet they were rarely alone. Modern medicine is vastly safer, but modern caregiving can be strangely isolated. One parent sits awake beside a glowing screen, while the rest of the household sleeps behind closed doors. Your ancestors had no screen. They had faces around the fire. That does not make the Stone Age safer. It was not safer. It makes the survival strategy easier to see. The first response to a sick baby was probably not a miracle cure. It was attention. Continuous, physical, shared attention. You listened. You held. You fed. You called others closer. And when you wake because the baby beside you has stopped crying,